Hi, guys, and welcome to another episode of Brewing Ecommerce. And today I have somebody with me who really intrigued me on LinkedIn because that's a topic I have no clue about. And I saw a lot of people, engaging with him, a lot of people talking about really good things about what he writes. So I thought, why not to learn from the master himself? So, Freddie, thank you so much for joining me today.
All right, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great. So, Freddie, I'd love you to kind of start by introducing yourself and what do you do, and then bring in the big topic that we're going to spend our maximum time about on, the whole SEO bit, please.
Absolutely, yes. So I am currently an SEO consultant, specialising in ecom brands, D2C brands of all sizes, all over the world. I kind of got into SEO about 12 years ago. I joined a small ecom store not too far from where I lived, called Amara here in the UK. I was basically a marketing assistant, so I dabbled in a bit of kind of like affiliates, Google Ads, email marketing, SEO, but kind of like really fell in love with the SEO side. And yeah, so over the next kind of like 5, 6 years, we grew it from virtually zero to over £10 million in annual revenue from the SEO
Wow.
channel. We grew it in house, built an internal team, was part of some exciting projects from international sites and content link building and kind of like doing it at scale when we had like kind of 30,000 products by the end. So that's how I kind of got into it. And then right now I'm, like I said, a consultant for brands of all sizes, and also have my own small cricket brand here in the UK, selling cricket bats and cricket equipment, which I'm growing primarily through SEO.
Wow. So, you know, in the interest of not sounding dumb, which I can pretty much end up being for a lot of it, uh, I'm going to ask you very, very simple questions
Mm-hmm.
because while everybody talks about SEO, there are people like me who maybe don't understand anything out of it at all, right? And there are some very different sides of the world in e-commerce that I'm trying to gather on performance marketing on Google and stuff like that. So I have so many questions that I'm going to deep dive into. So let's kickstart. Uh, I know you started your journey from the whole marketing side of things, right, Freddie? But there has to be something which kind of said to you an inner voice saying, hey, this is really cool. This is like a gold mine, right? So what was your SEO moment? Let's put it that way.
Great question. I think in the when that kind of I was doing a little bit of everything else. I feel like for me SEO there was lots of different moving parts of SEO. So there was so many different things that it actually tapped into. So I feel like I would at the time like I would get a chance to learn so many different broader things from SEO, and then also from potentially building my own sites and stuff like that, like how I can then leverage that to like potentially more income streams and things like that. So I think the diversity of challenges that SEO space is probably was what attracted me to kind of really want to focus in on that.
Okay. So if you had to summarize, how can e-commerce brand leverage on SEO for dummies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. How would you kind of put it? And again, the question is for me.
Absolutely. So the probably the number one thing for brands, e-commerce brands to focus on would be their collection pages. If they're on Shopify or category pages, generally, it's that they're going to be the largest opportunity for kind of like high intent traffic, so traffic that's going to convert from search. And so basically you need to understand kind of like what you need to do a bit of keyword research. So that is basically looking at what people are searching for to find your product, and then basically optimize their pages with those keywords to be able to potentially rank for those keywords.
Right. So the simple process, like any website or any kind of content game out there, because Google does all this magic of indexing at the back. It's about trying to have those right keywords. So firstly, identifying the keywords which are popular or trending in the market, and then go and make those changes so you kind of appear higher in the search ranking, right?
Yeah.
And is this a very, very complex job? Is it something that takes a lot of your time share on a daily operational thing, or now there are those kind of tools also which cut down your time but help you get there? How's the industry evolving in this whole sphere?
Yeah, so like kind of every year there's new tools coming out that basically make all SEO's workflows easier. In the past, like a lot of it's been very manual. So you can have like kind of 1,000 keywords, and basically what you then need to do is kind of like what of those keywords, the chances are lots of them probably slightly overlap. So the one page will rank for multiple keywords essentially. So what you need to do is kind of group them together so you don't end up creating too many pages that end up conflicting with each other. And so
Interesting.
there's tools out there now that basically do all that side of it for you, using kind of like what is currently ranking in Google, and then basically groups them together. So you then get an idea, rather than have like 1,000 keywords to review. You've now got like 100 pages that you can create to drive traffic.
Okay. Okay. And um, the way people talk about SEO in a B2B marketing or a SaaS marketing kind of stuff, right? Do you see a very similar, I would say, story on ecom, that less than like single digit people actually focus on SEO and everyone else is running after performance? How's the landscape there?
It's definitely like performance marketing is definitely kind of like the big one that people focus on, and I feel from my perspective, it makes sense to probably focus on performance to start with. You need to get the traction, you need to know there's demand for your product, get product market fit, and things like that before investing in SEO. Like SEO is generally more, it's a long term. It takes time to kind of like build up and things like that. So you need to be in it for the long haul before you invest in SEO. It's not, you're not going to do some SEO tomorrow and the next day start seeing results. It takes time to build up.
And I think that might be one deterrent factor for most of them, right? Because you need to have the patience, and everybody doesn't have the time and resources. So we are all constrained by so many
Mhm.
factors there, right? But do you see this trend changing a little bit? Do you see people understanding the importance of SEO and also a long term brand building kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Like most of the people that I work with are definitely, they talk about being in it for the long haul in terms of building their brand and business that they want to be around for 10, 20 like plus years. So they definitely understand the opportunity that it takes. It's also like it takes time to build up, but then once you've got traction, it like kind of like speeds up as well. So it's one of the things that if you start investing in it, even if it's like a smaller scale, and even if you kind of like just learn best practice to optimize some products and collection pages, create some kind of like content and things like that, then you can like kind of start getting a bit of traction like without too much investment. And then once you've got a bit of traction, then it makes sense to then kind of like potentially hire an agency or kind of freelancer to kind of like give it a bit of a kind of a boost sort of thing.
Makes sense. All right. So so imagine if I'm a footwear brand, right? Just trying to launch new, and I am exactly in that stage as you mentioned, Freddie, is trying to figure out my product market fit, trying to figure out what channels work for me, etc., etc. And I come to you saying, "Hey, Freddie, this is what I've done. I have this amount of transaction, a Shopify website for the past 6 months, etc." What would be the kind of steps and processes that you would kind of undergo with a brand? And I want that coming from you. So you say, we do this, we do that, so that people watching can understand the methodology that you kind of follow, in getting the whole SEO bit out there, please.
Absolutely. So yeah, so one of the first things I always do, which not every SEO does, is trying to get information from kind of like your customers. So find out why they purchased from you, what were those key reasons that they bought from you. That gives me a kind of great idea of kind of like what content that could attract more people like those customers in terms of like what they may be searching for. Like if you've got kind of a, I don't know, like a waterproof trainer, that's your USP, or whatever it is, so you can wear it on the beach sort of thing. Then there'll be things like if they specifically bought it to wear on the beach or to wear on walks and hikes and things like that, depending on what like those answers are, that gives you a fantastic insight. Obviously, that can be used across your
Sure.
performance
And
marketing ads and
how
everything like that.
that's an amazing point, right? That's really insightful, to get that thing, that why are people really buying or even spending their time and, money on your website. How would you do that from an SEO perspective?
So some brands collect that sort of information post purchase in terms of kind of like asking the question of why did you buy. If they haven't, then we work with the brand to send out a short survey normally, just to kind of like get a little bit more insight into kind of like what were those reasons basically.
Okay, perfect. All right. So post purchase surveys and stuff like that, and that collect the data, and then yeah, yeah. I know a couple of Shopify apps now who are doing excellent work in this, and the kind of data that they can generate insights from is just mind blowing,
Mm-hmm.
right? All right, perfect. Yes, this. Please go on.
Yes, so I then kind of like leverage that kind of like data. Obviously, it's very kind of like in depth sort of thing, and then try and like kind of like do a bit of keyword research around like what are the terms that people are searching for in Google, similar to those sort of things that they're looking to solve. And then looking at those keywords, we then look to essentially kind of like map them on site. So does it make sense to build out a collection page for this topic, or is it more of a
Hmm.
blog content piece of work sort of thing? So you kind of build out almost like a content plan for the site. So you can then get a perspective on kind of like the search demand for different areas. So you know whether to lean into certain areas at certain times. You can see search trends. Obviously, like certain things will peak more in the summer or like near Christmas and things like that. So there's like lots of understanding the different kind of like levels of demand through the whole journey. And then we look at kind of what we can do to get the brand featured in publications. So one of the kind of like big tactics that I use for kind of a lot of my clients and stuff, we try and get featured in gift guides. So around different gifting occasions, if you look back and see what kind of like journalists wrote gift guides in the previous year, you can then reach out to them and pitch your product to be featured if they're going to write a new one. And it can work like extremely well at getting some really kind of like high authority links from kind of like House Beautiful, Vogue, GQ, like all those sort of like publications that people dream to be on. It's like it's a nice, quite relatively straightforward, easy way to like potentially get on those sort of publications. And then that helps build up the authority of the site to Google, to then give them more encouragement to kind of like rank you higher, basically.
Nice, nice. And from like an average site who's kind of 6 months old in the system, let's say has 100,000 visitors a month, kind of a thing. Not crazy high, but not very low. What would be a very very approximate time frame when you start to see some kind of search volume increases, and people increase of traffic and collection pages, etc.?
Yes, it can vary massively depending on the
Yeah.
competition, obviously,
Yeah.
and it depends quite a lot. So some clients I work with have done a lot of either PR work or have picked up a lot of kind of like quite natural PR just from being like very aggressive with like kind of paid media and stuff like that. If you've got those sort of links already, then it can start like kind of kicking on a lot quicker. Because if you haven't done any SEO or got any real content or optimization already done, if you've got the authority from the links, you can just layer on like the on-page optimization, and you can start like you can see results like starting to tick up within a month. Like you can see its search impressions increasing, you can see clicks starting to increase. Like generally speaking, if you're quite fresh, like if the site is very fresh and doesn't have any links or barely any links and no optimization, it does normally take quite a while in terms of kind of like 6 to 12 months to probably get some
Hmm.
significant traction. Again, you'll see you can target like lower competition keywords to get earlier traction to like kind of get things kind of like moving. but it like that is the thing. SEO, it does take time. It does take the patience to and the long term view to stick at it.
Yeah, but again, everybody has a marketing mix of
Mhm.
even the budgets, right? So if you send X amount on Meta or Google and TikToks and stuff like this, some proportion can go into this with a very long term view, because um, I firmly believe that deep down, uh, distribution is one of the most important things
Mhm.
in the world, right? You're selling a software, you're selling a platform, you're selling a product, you're selling, pizzas or whatever at the end of it. And there's so much money that you can spend, but there has to be a steady flow of organic people talking about it. That's where we always talk about, whatever you do in the world, the product has to be really cool
Mhm.
and nice. It has to solve that value, and I think that's where is the SEO angle that fits in. And yeah, I've heard this so many times, and I have a very personal similar feeling about this. My only regret is I didn't start SEO 6 months back,
Mhm.
right?
That is the general view of most clients. Once you've started, we work with them a while, and it's starting to ramp up. They're like, oh, we should have done this 6 months ago, a year ago, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So there, that's interesting. Now, I want to look at this from a very different lens, right,
Mhm.
Freddie? So imagine I'm like a brand doing £1 million a month kind of a revenue, right? And there's an upward trend, market's going all right, and suddenly, uh, Freddie jumps on board and understands that there were, like, three guys internally managing SEO for the brand, etc., and then sees there is something not going all right. Okay, so in your experience, what are the top three pitfalls there, or what are the top three things that you see brands don't do well or do the mistakes with SEO, please?
Yes, so specifically on Shopify, I'm going to call out Shopify specifically. So there's they have a product URL structure issue, and that basically means that they create duplicate product pages, which can confuse Google to some degree. And so basically, it's a really easy, basically a 5 minute fix in the theme code to fix it. But I've seen by fixing this for the larger brands with lots of already good traction, it can add like kind of tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue per
Wow.
month. Like
Wow.
if they've got that sort of traction, that's like it's literally always the number one thing I look at when I start working with Shopify stores of any size is getting that aspect kind of like fixed. And 99% of the time, there's some sort of benefit regardless of what their size is.
That's good.
That's the number one.
Okay. Yeah.
Number two is optimizing their collection pages. Normally, there's a lot of opportunity to double down on additional content, FAQs, keywords in the page title. Like it, it's relatively basic stuff, but it's stuff that I think gets missed. Almost like the larger you get, you start trying to focus on too many obscure technical things rather than coming back to the basics. And so that like there's always opportunities there around some collections and category pages that brands have.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, it's how you can leverage the blog content. So lots of people have the opinion that the kind of blog content doesn't convert, which is true to some degree, depending on what content you're creating. But the number three basically is use your SEO to fuel your email list. So create articles that are relevant to your topic. They might not be relevant to like selling to your like audience at that time, but create ones that are relevant and use lead magnets, giveaways, or whatever it is to basically drive them to your email list. And obviously, like it then becomes a lot easier to have that conversation, educate them, and eventually get the sale. SEO, like all channels, shouldn't be used necessarily in isolation. You should always use that alongside other stuff to to grow the whole business and brand.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty nice, and the kind of impact that they can have is pretty massive, right?
Mm.
As you mentioned. Um, there's this problem that we face in our world on conversion optimization side, Freddie, is the attribution problem.
Mhm.
right? Uh, and funny, let me spend a minute on it and where I'm coming from. I switched on something yesterday on Apple TV, right? And they have a show, whatever, and I realized that uh, again, Apple does an amazing job at marketing or different things, and um, they don't talk about Apple anywhere, but in the show, every single digital gadget uses Apple's,
Mhm.
right? So you're using an iPhone, you're using a laptop, you're using an iMac and stuff like that, right? And they don't even go that deep that somebody's trying to highlight a cool feature of Apple while using that. It's just so inherent and it's just so blended in that it doesn't stand out, but it's somehow getting registered in our mind somewhere, right? And I think on your blog's point and all the other things that you're trying to mention, SEO is very similar to that in my opinion. It's like slowly getting there, right? Like we at Kui, we kind of calculate a real-time customer intent, right? And the intent that gets powered by so many different factors. um, is there a problem or a challenge you face as well in terms of attribution? Very nicely, Meta can come back and say, performance guys say, no, this purchase was done because I ran an ad. It's not because of the guy who read the blog.
Absolutely, it is. I feel like most ecom stores have the attribution challenge, like even just between their paid channels. But definitely with SEO, like you can't drop a cookie like you can with the ads. You don't have um, as much almost like leverage on or visibility on that side in terms of kind of like they saw, even if they just saw an ad and then made a purchase, like you can't, like it's a lot harder to track that they've seen you in Google but not clicked, or they like read a blog post 2 months ago and then came back. Like there's different things that I've tried in the past, such as kind of like using so obviously like email using email as an example. Like all email subscribers have to come from somewhere. Like email
Mm,
doesn't, they don't just turn up on your email list. They have to have got to your email list from some channel.
mm,
um, so we started looking at kind of like splitting out the email, almost like email list by source. Obviously, we didn't have the data for all time, but we started tracking that, and it helped us get an understanding of kind of like what were the bigger drivers of email subscribers, and therefore like kind of customers and returning customers through that.
mhm.
Um, like again, it was not a perfect science, and it was a lot of Excel spreadsheets trying to exports and things like that. But that was one of the way that we tried to look at it from a slightly different perspective. Obviously, that was all just if they were on the email list and they did an action, we could look at it. But yeah, SEO. I feel like SEO does normally slip down the bottom of the attribution, most attribution models that in the past. I think in I'm not sure if GA4 does it, but in the old Google Analytics, like you could look at different attribution models, such as kind of like first click or linear and things like that. And on almost every site I ever looked at that you compared attribution models, like SEO looks better as anything else but last click. Um, so then it showcases that maybe it's not that last conversion point, but it is definitely frequently on that journey for those that do invest in it.
And do you think with the whole technology and new platforms coming in every year, like there are two kinds of people in the world in e-commerce. In my opinion, right? One who have settled within themselves of whatever the attribution is, they don't want to fight it, and the others want to fight it.
Mhm.
The ones who want to fight it might go and spend money on triple whale and things like that, right? And, but also what you say that if SEO is the smallest proportion of my entire spend, and how my performance mix is, then that's where it comes in the bottom also today, because that's just what it is. But do you see with AI and the other new technology coming in, do you see that this becoming also an important part, or there might be some new tools which will give you a better click rate and SEO entire flow traffic or things like that?
Yeah, I certainly hope so. I haven't seen anything just yet. I feel like it's one of those things that um, you need to have. There needs to be someone that drives that sort of thing forward, and obviously then people would argue that it's focused almost like too much on SEO and still needs to be part of the wider attribution conversation. But yeah, I certainly hope there's definitely more. It's almost like user journey tracking, monitoring type thing. So you actually kind of like understand the different touch points that people have before they purchase, rather than just focusing on that kind of like last attribution clip, basically.
Okay. Okay. No. Yeah. It's like, if I can draw parallels from HubSpot, for example, right? So while what you started was like a core CRM, then that helped you go and make websites and landing pages. Now what it also lets you do is create those blogs, right? So it becomes exactly what you're saying, a part of the bigger platform, but which has the entire omni-channel orchestration layer and stuff. All right, sounds exciting. Um, I have a couple of more questions, Freddie. It's going really well, and I can really go and boring you to death. But glad that we have a time limit here. So one is, you will tell me a real life funny story with an e-commerce brand, something that you once saw, or something once you audited. You would hope for the moon, but you landed in Mars. So something like that. Anything that, if you'd like to share with us, that'll be great.
I feel like this is more SEO funny than funny outside of SEO. But I think the only thing that sticks in my mind is I once worked with a relatively small e-commerce store that they probably had a few hundred products, like in the 50 collection pages or something like that. And I was like started to work with them, had like was looking into Google Search Console, so I get some insights into kind of like how they're doing. And I realized that somehow their very small site with a few hundred pages had over 1 million different pages somehow
Wow.
being on there. And it was a lot of different things that they'd done in the past, different apps and stuff that they'd used that created multiple kind of like filter variation pages and things like that. And I'd never seen a site that looked so small on the kind of like front end feel like actually be so massive on the back end. And
Oh God.
it was starting to try and to like kind of pick it apart and put it to get back together, basically.
Yeah, it would be like, I would be put apart myself trying to fix that mess, right? Oh, it's insane.
Yeah.
A million of those here and there is, oh God. All right, that is crazy, and it's so funny, right? Sometimes things under the hood can really be scary, and I think SEO opens up those kind of angles where people don't look at it. A lot of them can look at it from a very Shopify structure, or a very performance ad driven structure, but from an indexing point of view, I think it's a very different ball game
Mm.
altogether.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. And the last one, Freddie, which is the most interesting one. You have to tell us something that you've never told anyone ever. That has to be something about you, something funny, or an incident or something. Yeah. So don't let me, go through all the crawlers in your head, but just go for the search results now.
Something SEO related? I'm trying to think.
No,
Um,
anything. This is more about you, so it can be anything at all.
I can't think of anything I've never told. I'm quite an open book, so I don't feel like I've not told any people.
Yeah,
One,
because you work in Google, Freddie. Come on, you have to be the open book.
exactly. I feel like one thing that not many people know about me that I work with and do is that I'm basically deaf in my left ear, so I like I much prefer working kind of remotely and talking to people by like this sort of thing, because you can't tell because it's straight, like my headphones go straight into my ear and it doesn't affect it. But whenever I'm kind of in person, I'm always shuffling myself around to make sure I'm on the right side of people.
Okay, with SEO on your side, Freddie, I believe you're always on the right side, right? No.
True.
So thank you so much, Freddie. I think it was a wonderful chat. I got to learn a lot, and um, I know brands today are facing a lot of problems. Like always, performance is one of them. uh, there is a big debate that I have with a lot of agencies that we work with is how much money should we spend on Meta, how much on Google, and is it for short term, is it for long term, and things like that, right? And as a tool on e-commerce ourselves, like we have that constant debate as well, as to how to structure our um marketing mix. And I think SEO is definitely a strategy which e-commerce brand should go and start incorporating if they haven't already. And guys, if you have something, talk to Freddie. He's a great guy. I've heard good things about him from the market as well, so I'm sure he's willing to help. And Freddie, this was awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to having you again on the show sometime.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
All right then. Thank you, Freddie.
Thank you.